Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Nomad Experts podcast by Beach Commute. Today, you've got Jeff and Marissa, and we're going to talk about, does your age affect your chances of getting a remote job? This isn't something that we actually thought about initially. This came about as a result of a lot of people writing into us asking almost this exact question verbatim. And fortunately, Marissa's talked about this as a career coach a lot with her current and past clients. So we're going to have a conversation about whether or not this is actually true, and if so, how to go about dealing with it. So before we get into that, Marissa, how's it going? And where are you?
It is going so well. I'm in my beloved Costa Rica still. I just got back from like a workout on the beach at low tide. I think I was up really early today for no reason. I watched the moon set at like 6 a.m. over a mountain because I couldn't sleep. And I was like, this is over the ocean. It's a good life here. I'm loving being here and just happy with the decision that I made to come here. But what about you?
How long are you going to settle in there, do you think?
I know.
You're starting to get, I feel like you're really starting to embrace Slowmad and Slowmad lifestyle and routine a little bit.
I am, Jeff. Did you ever think that day would come? Because I did not.
I did.
You did?
Did.
You knew.
Yeah.
You guys know me better than I know me. But I moved honestly so quickly for like 6 or 7 years of every now and then I would take a break for like 2-3 months. But when I was on the road, I was like every 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, just country, just like on the go and loving it. I loved all the new places.
You're on a run.
And I had a lot of nomad friends who had gone maybe like 3 years traveling and would go home and then, or like get a home base somewhere, whether that was, back in their home country or somewhere else. And I just couldn't understand them. I was like, I get that you say that you like this, but I could not comprehend. And all of a sudden I got there, I clicked. I'm sorry if I ever judged anyone else for, for stopping nomading and slowing down. But yeah, I've been in Costa Rica probably close to a month now. I was supposed to leave last week, actually, and now I'm going to stay another month at a minimum. And I don't know, I'm thinking about making this like a permanent home base. So TBD, everybody, but I'm looking.
Oh, permanent?
Well, like a most of the year. Like I want...
Investing, okay.
Yeah, like I want a home base somewhere. And I think like if I were to have the majority of my time and kind of like leave stuff in a home and a place... Like I'm thinking Costa Rica might be that place. So no promises yet. TBD. I'll keep you posted. But that's new for me. Like that's different, and I feel good about it. It feels really good to live the slow life here.
Good place to set up camp for sure.
Yeah.
You've got one season. It's awesome. You got the best
2
sunsets
seasons.
ever.
There's a rainy season, so not.
That's right.
That's when I won't be here. If I, it just pours like for.
It's kind of fun
the
though.
Whole day.
Costa Rica rain. That's fun.
Yeah, I mean it's a good time to like bunker down and work. So yeah, if I were to not be here any of the months, that's like probably like September, October kind of time here. So, we'll see. I got to go back. I got something like I got to be in New York in March for something. So I'll pop around, but like this is feeling like it's going to be the place. But what about you? Colombia. You're back in Colombia. I know. Welcome to the slow life. I'm glad to join you in Diego.
Not bad. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a place for going quick. I was doing that a little bit.
Yeah, you did a lot last year.
I did quite a bit. I think I did like 11 countries last year, which for me is a lot.
That's a lot for you.
I don't.
It's like my normal pace.
Fast nomad. Yeah, exactly. Back in Colombia. It's my now 6th time as a digital nomad. And it's great. I mean, I'm still finding all kinds. Here in Colombia, there's just so much you can do. It's such a wide range of stuff, cultural experiences. Like I could spend the next 5 years here and still not be bored. There's just way too much to do. But I only had 3 weeks here this time. We've got a bunch of friends in Buenos Aires, so I'm going to be heading out next Saturday.
Everyone is there.
And then, everyone's there. I've got 4 weeks. Hopefully that's enough time there. Probably not. I'd have to get a feel for it. It usually takes me about like a week and a half to start to really get my bearings. Like, that's where I like to go shopping. This is my favorite little cafes and stuff. So it should be good. And then actually later in the year, there's murmurings of people going back to Eastern Europe again. I guess this is happening again. People going to Serbia and Croatia. So
I will not.
Yeah,
be
no,
there.
I know you. I know you won't. You're go in opposite mode.
I will send you all love from afar and see all of our friends' stories together, and just be like, if you want to come to the beach, I'm here. But I actually convinced. I think I convinced a couple of our friends to come here like maybe 2 weeks from now and stay for a couple weeks here in Costa Rica. So for
It's a tough sell, isn't it?
Tough sell.
You got a place out there. Would it be at your family's place?
Yeah. So it's
That's
it's
an
nice.
easy
It's
sell.
easy to come. So
No surprise there.
People come in. There's always nomad friends to meet, and I've been meeting so many people now that I've decided to kind of like be here-ish for a little bit. I've actually started meeting a bunch of local people in town. There's so many amazing people of like all ages. So that's been fun.
What does the digital nomad scene look like where you are? You're a little bit off the beaten path. It's
I'm
not
in like
typical
a
style.
random little town. So there's a couple of other so Santa Teresa and Nosara and even Tamarindo, I would say along this coast are the three most popular kind of digital nomad towns. I'm in like a tiny little, there's like 800 people here. It's like a really small town. And it's mostly older people either vacationing or who have homes here and come for like a couple months of the year and rent their place out the other times. But there's actually been some people who have been like older people who are working remotely. I feel like they've like just kind of discovered it and they're like, I bought a place here. Like my family's kind of coming down, but I'm working during the day. And so there's people, I've met some people my age.
A glimpse into my future.
Exactly. So there's people my age. There's people like I've made friends with people who are like in their 60s, their 70s. Like I feel like age doesn't matter here. It's all the people who just kind of came and just decided to live a little bit of an alternative life. And like we have so much in common with them. Like it's I accidentally ended up talking to this woman for like an hour yesterday. I think she's my parents' age, and we're like gonna get coffee later this week. Like it's just, I don't know, it's fun. So anyway, speaking of age, that's actually literally unintentional. I did not mean to talk about that, but I feel like it's actually a really good lead in to our podcast.
Before we do that, I got to give a quick shout out to our listener, Rachel, who reached out to me. She's a listener, longtime listener. I'm actually meeting her for dinner tonight here in Colombia. So this will be the third or fourth time that we've actually met somebody from our podcast. Actually, a few for you too. So I think we're coming up on like 6 people we've met who are listeners randomly.
Awesome. I feel like it's always in Colombia and Costa Rica as well. There's been a ton of beach commuters actually who've reached out to me in Costa Rica who are just like a couple hours away. I haven't been in the same town as anyone else, but people have been coming. They were like here for vacation in January. Somebody actually owned a place. Like I think Costa Rica is their home. It was like a 7-hour drive. If you're listening, I would love to come. It looked like a really amazing place. But yeah, it's been fun. I feel like when we're in Costa Rica and Colombia, that seems to be where we meet the most beach commuters. But we're all over. So reach out if you happen to be where we are.
Yeah, definitely. Shoot us a note. We'd love to get dinner with you. Have a coffee, whatever.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So the question is, as Jeff said, does your age affect your chances of, a lot of people ask just getting a job, specifically here on this podcast, getting a remote job that you can do while you travel. And the reason we wanted to talk about this is I've actually had a lot of people ask me this lately. Some of our clients from other programs that we've done within Beach Commute, some of my personal clients. We've had some people reach out to us in our email as we've launched our new digital nomad daily membership. So with that, there's sort of, I guess, 2 ways to look at that to start is, are you too young? Some people ask, like, maybe I haven't even been to college. I want a remote job. Maybe I just graduated college. I don't have that much experience. Can I get a remote job? And then on the flip side, I would say probably more of our listeners, but we get both, is, am I too old to get a remote job? Like, are people just going to see my application, see my age, and just immediately disqualify me from my resume, from my LinkedIn, from my application before they even have a chance to know you, to know what you're about, to know if you're qualified? They're 2 really good questions. So we wanted to address these so you know if it's possible for you. So with that, the first part I'll just kind of start and answer quickly is, can you be too young to get a digital nomad job? Can you be too young to get a remote job? Can you have too little experience is kind of another way to put that. And the answer for that one is no. There are a ton of remote jobs that are entry level, that you don't need much experience. So whether you just don't have much work experience, maybe you've been a stay-at-home mom, or maybe you just, you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, you're just graduating college, whatever that looks like for you. There are so many entry-level places that people are looking to hire. And it really does not matter. Like, I don't know if you've experienced it, Jeff, but there's a lot of people even who joined Wi-Fi Tribe chapters, who joined us, traveling, working remotely the last, decade, who were 22, fresh out of college, or 23. And they're some of my favorite people that I've met. They have great careers. So when you're just starting, there's tons that you can do, but you can't really be too young. So before I move on to the flip side of that, any thoughts, any questions, or anything to add to that?
No, it's definitely true. And I think just thinking back to way in the past when I was hiring people, it was more expected, especially in this space that's like highly digital, like digital nomads. As is in the name, you expect they're mostly going to be younger people because they're working in tech, right? And I think it just kind of goes hand in hand with that. So I do feel like there is a little bit of an implicit bias in there for people. When they're thinking in terms of digital, they just assume it is mostly young. So I don't think there is, like, at least in my mind, I don't think there's any penalty for being on the younger side of things. So that's just my perspective from back in my years of hiring a lot of people. So I'll just let you continue your thought through to the other side of the spectrum.
And it is interesting, Jeff, like as you were talking about that from someone who is hiring, you almost just said, I don't know if you meant to or you interpreted it this way, which is like, we expect you to be young, which is like, maybe we don't hire older people. Is that something that you ever thought about or would come across? Or like, it's just kind of like, of course we'd hire young people, but we don't not hire older people. I'm curious just your answer before I hop in and answer.
I don't think it definitely wasn't in my company. It wasn't a spoken bias. It wasn't something that was part of policy. It wasn't something that I think most people even realized, but it was there. Like people there was murmurings. There was like I said, I think it was an implicit bias that people just had that, you were expected to be younger. And there was an assumption that younger people would have a better grasp on tech and digital than the older demographics. And we know that that's not okay. There's nothing right about that. And that's something that I think we need to kind of set the record straight on that. For sure.
Yeah. And with that, I feel like there's another assumption there, which is a good one to address, which is all digital nomad jobs are techie, right? And some of them certainly are. Some of them are involving new trends in social media and new technology or AI or whatever it might be. But we also have so many jobs that we send out in our daily, job membership and our emails that are not at all techie, right? It's just simply the jobs. I mean, yes, you need to be on your computer. You need to know how to open a computer and make that work and know how to work your phone and Zoom and things like that to have meetings. But there's also, there's legal jobs. There are other, whether it's writing jobs, copywriting, there's also design and things like that, which do involve some tech and technology. But those jobs have been around. But, you don't have to necessarily no new tech. So there are so many jobs. I feel like my mind is blanking of even more examples, but it's not like to be a digital nomad, you have to be in the know of tech. Like there's plenty of jobs of just generic jobs, not generic is the wrong word, but with just regular companies that happen to be remote. And so it might be strategy, analytics, different HR roles. So they're not all techie. And there are people who need people with a lot of experience, and that usually involves a higher age because it takes years to get that experience. So all digital, I guess the myth to bust here is all digital nomad jobs are not tech jobs. And we do need people with experience, but I do want to answer the question of, are you too old to apply for a digital nomad job? But on the flip side, are employers biased against older age, I think is the real concern and question that I've been getting that people are asking. So with that, I will say anecdotally, and I don't have statistics on this, probably because nobody is like legally allowed to say these types of things, like to be ageist. But I honestly have heard anecdotally from personal clients, from people in their age group and their cohorts, I don't know, that's hard to say today, friends, they have things like that. A lot of people feel like they are discriminated against because of their age when applying to jobs. And I would say that's just regular jobs or remote jobs, just kind of flat across the board, where the fear is if I submit my resume and you can see I've got a ton of experience, or maybe I have, you can see how old you are on your LinkedIn or your resume, or there's ways to calculate that you're just not even getting an interview. And that might be from that bias that you talked about, that kind of subconscious bias, which is like, you want the younger people, they know more, they're doing this, or they're fresher, or they're energetic, or whatever, the myth might be. So I'm going to talk about how to combat that if you do fall in this age range. But before I do, any thoughts or questions?
Yeah, and it's just, I think it's important that you're going to be going through this, because a lot of times these assumptions are just flat out wrong. I mean, I get to think anecdotally, just look at my family, right? I've got 2 younger brothers, right smack dab in the age range of where you expect somebody to be super tech savvy. They're complete Luddites. Like, they respond to texts every 12 hours, open their laptops maybe once a week, have zero concept of how this stuff works. And then I've got other friends that are in their 50s and up that are very, very tech savvy and very sophisticated. So while there may be, by the numbers, more younger people into tech, it does not necessarily mean that that's going to be exactly the way it plays out in real life. Nor are you unable to learn, right? So anybody in the upper age spectrum listening to this podcast thinking, oh, okay, well, I want to get a tech job. Am I unable to learn because of my age? No, it's absolutely not true at all. Depending on what you're getting into, you could potentially learn these things very, very quickly. People shift careers all the time, and there is no inability for people in the upper age groups to learn any of these jobs that we talk about on a regular basis that are very typical of digital nomad jobs. Yeah, and I'm speaking from anecdotal experience. I don't have data to back these kind of things up, but I do have a feeling that I think there's a lot of truth to these statements that I'm making.
And also, if you're listening, you don't necessarily have to learn a new skill to become a digital nomad. Like, there are plenty of people who have been in the industry for, maybe you've been in the whatever industry you're in for 20 years working, 25 years, whatever that might be. And you can do your job remote. You just have to find a remote company to do so using the skills and experience you already have. And there's a lot of people who have been in our programs that we've worked with, amazing people, beach commuters who I've been working with the past months as they're looking to find new roles and update their resume and figure out what they want to do as they travel. It's some of my favorite people who I would hire in a heartbeat. If we had a job open, I don't care what age anyone is. Like, if you can do a great job, you're in. And I've told them, I'm like, when I have a job for you, like, I'm coming back. And they're probably, some are 10, 15, 20 years older than us. And that's fine. Like, I don't discriminate. But a lot of times you kind of have to get past that first barrier. It's almost, I think about, like dating apps where it's like you might swipe left on somebody, or like say no to someone that you just see in a picture, but if you met them in real life, like, you would actually love them and maybe date them. So it's kind of the same thing here. You got to find ways to get around that so you don't get rejected by your age before anyone meets you, and then show how awesome you are. But one thing I want to say before, I'm going to talk about, I was going to do 3, but I just added a 4th way that I got reminded of, to essentially hide your age and basically get past the dating app equivalent and get a remote job no matter what age you are. But I did want to point something out before that, which is it is illegal for employers to ask your age. You are not required to tell them your age. They do not have to know. And if they ask you, you do not have to answer. It's probably a red flag if they keep pushing you and try to know. I wouldn't want to work for a company who it feels like that anyway. So it might be someone accidentally kind of says something offhand and you're like, I don't want to answer that. You don't have to. But I do want to talk about with that, just like if you're in an interview, or if I'm going to give you some tips here to hide your age and you're like, that feels weird, what if they ask me? Like, you do not have to say so. It should be a blind answer so that people cannot and do not discriminate against you. So before I jump into the kind of ways where you can hide your age so that no one knows, that you can just show them how wonderful and brilliant and charming and experienced you are. Any last thoughts there before we jump into that, Jeff?
Marissa says, hide your age. We're going to use that verbiage quite a bit. It might sound...
It does sound bad.
On the surface, it might sound a little bit sneaky.
Yeah.
But it's not. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to put you on a level playing field here.
Yes.
And because of these implicit biases that we've talked about, I think this just helps put you on that level playing field. So don't think of this as like you're doing anything that you shouldn't be doing in any sense of the word, because you're not. What you're doing is you're trying to put yourself on a level playing field and give yourself the best opportunity possible to get that dream job of yours.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that implicit bias is a good word that we didn't use before. And it's the same. I know there's a lot of, a lot of drama around this, but it's the same sort of idea as like applying, like racially applying blind to universities, to not have that as anything on your application so that people don't know, and have internal biases before they even know. And this is getting into it. I want to stick with the age today, but there's people out there who will submit a bunch of resumes, like the exact same resume with a name that sounds foreign or a different race or sounds like not a Caucasian person, and then submit that exact same resume with like a very Caucasian sounding name and get more the same exact resume with a more kind of like Caucasian sounding name will often get more interviews. So I guess the fact is, like, I absolutely wish these weren't true, but there are implicit biases. And so as Jeff said, when we're saying like hide your age, it's not meant to be sneaky. It's simply meant to help you surpass people who might have subconscious biases so that they can meet you and then just see how great you are, because age shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't. Like, your value that you can add, your intelligence, what you contribute is what should matter. So thank you for that. So with that, I am going to tell you how to sneakily hide your age now for your best interest. But again, it's not to say, like, I had somebody else, one of our beach commuters was asking me about, like, should you lie about what country you're from, or like where you have like a residency or where you have the ability to work, and like, don't lie about that. Like, there's things that do matter, but age is something that should not matter. It's not like, oh, you must be 40 years to 60 years old to apply this job and you're 25 and lying. It's like, it shouldn't matter, so we're hiding it. So yeah, I just want to say that. Okay, so with that, I'm going to talk about 4 ways that you can sort of get around this. The first 3 are really about hiding your age, and the 4th is about getting past that kind of dating app equivalent and meeting someone. So number 1 is to remove your education dates. This is usually more prevalent with LinkedIn, but also if it's on your resume, like, remove it. I don't care if you're 22, 35, 47, or 89. Like, remove your education date so that people can't calculate and backtrack how old you are. So I know a lot of people, like, I didn't think twice about this for a long time, because when I graduated, I just had my college and my college year. And when I was in college, that was helpful because it showed when I was graduating and things like that. And then like on LinkedIn, and then I just never thought about it again. And then when I started learning about all this, I was like, oh, no one needs to know how old I am. So anyway, the point of that one is go into your LinkedIn, and you can keep what college or, what education you have, but remove whether you have undergrad, master's degrees, or high school education, whatever it is. Just, you don't have to have the dates on there. Remove it. And if it's on your resume, remove that as well. So that's number 1. So, obviously people can just calculate how old you are if that's on there. Any questions or thoughts there?
Last I remember, when you go on LinkedIn, it does ask for those dates, right? So you can actually just leave that blank and it'll populate nothing in there?
Yeah, for that one you can just remove that.
Oh, okay. Got it. Hate LinkedIn. Get me going. No, let's not send me down that road. That's my only comment.
That's another one.
Let's not derail it. Once you go into the second technique. We're going to take a quick pause right there to tell you about our remote travel jobs daily. Are you currently looking for a job that's going to allow you to become a digital nomad and work and travel around the world? We've got exactly what you're looking for. Every week, as part of our free plan, we handpick 2 jobs that are perfect for becoming a digital nomad that'll allow you to work and travel around the world while you're doing it. That's 2 jobs per week for free. We also have a premium plan in which we send out 2 hand-picked jobs that are also perfect for becoming a digital nomad every single day, Monday through Friday. So that's 40 hand-picked jobs by us that are ideal for becoming a digital nomad. So make sure you take a look at these 2 plans. It is beachcommute.com/travel jobs. That's beachcommute.com/travel jobs. All the details will be there.
Yes. So this one does get a little bit trickier to what you asked for. The second one is also to remove some of the dates for your experience on LinkedIn. And for this one, you actually, so as you enter a job, so if you think about LinkedIn, you go in and it asks you like, I work for this company and this was the title for these years. You can't not have the years on there for that experience specifically. So then the question is, well, how do you work around that? So for that particular part of it, what you want to do is keep some of your most recent experience, right? So you're going to have something that's like, 2 years ago to present, or 1 year to present, and then, 3 years ago to 2 years ago, and, maybe the last couple of jobs. But below that, let's say maybe you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s and you've had like 7 other jobs starting from the 90s, you can start to calculate, even if I don't know your exact age, like, okay, well, if this person was working in the 90s, they're probably, or the early 2000s or whatever, they're going to be about this age. So what you want to do there, and it's the same, actually, I'll talk about the resume in a second, because this one is a little bit of a workaround. So keep those past couple of jobs that feel recent, that feel like a good amount of experience that you want to show. And then what you do is there's basically a place to add kind of like additional experience. So instead of having the traditional template and format that they want you to fill out, which is the company, the job, and the dates that it will make you do, and if you don't have the dates, it won't work for you. You can do additional experience and almost just write in your own copy of like, you and just don't have the dates. You can say different companies, you can say additional experience or additional job highlights or things that you've done, and you just don't include it as like this job from, these years. So you just kind of remove it, and almost kind of, you can like clump it into, one bulk experience of some of the things you've done. You can still list the companies if you want to, but you don't have to have the years when you do it that way. So it's just kind of like a little bit of a LinkedIn workaround, because they do try to force you to have those years, even though it's, shouldn't be.
Yeah. I mean, it would be, I don't want to jump ahead and step on anything coming up, but I mean, so basically your LinkedIn is kind of like a digital resume at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same concept of thinking here, whereas like if you're looking at these kind of things, you kind of don't want this long ass laundry list as a hiring manager. Like I would never look at lists that are that long. It's like, it doesn't matter to me. I'm more concerned with what are you doing today? What have you been like? I just want to make sure that you're not like bouncing around every 3 months between jobs. And I want to see what you're doing today and what your job title is. That's kind of like, and more importantly, like what your skill set is and whether or not you fit into the company. So I, if it were me, I would not put too much stock into being like, oh, I've got to include all 19 things on there. 'Cause I don't care as a hiring manager. I didn't care about that kind of stuff. So don't bury yourself if you don't have to, right?
Yeah, it's a really great point. And I think a lot of people, it's almost like people feel like they're required to show every single thing that they've done. So maybe this will be a helpful tip. And I talk to a lot of my clients about this as a career coach in the work that I do, is you don't have to have, it's not like a book of your entire history. Maybe you did a job 8 years ago that was like kind of useless. You didn't really do that much. You don't like it. It wasn't that impressive. Like whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. You can just literally take it off of there. Like nobody's the police. They're not doing a background research. If they asked you, what were you doing 8 years ago? You could then tell them. But you don't have to list out like all 20 jobs that you've ever had. So just remove things that you don't want to have. So it does like it just doesn't matter. The other questions, so people might say like, oh, like for some people they'll just say, wonderful, I've got a lot, I can just remove that. It's not as relevant. Maybe you're doing something random, whatever, just take it out. But some people will say like, I do want all of those things because maybe I did something really impressive 17 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And I want to show that company, or I want to show what I did there. So you can still show those things, but you don't have to show the year, and you don't have to list like everything you ever did at that company. Maybe you just have like the one main job highlight that you did if someone wants to ask about it. So again, it's just a way to get your foot in the door. It doesn't mean, again, think about like a first date. Like you don't have to tell someone everything you've ever done in your whole life. It's kind of like, here's the top highlights of me. That's what your LinkedIn can and should be. That's what your resume can and should be. And then if you're interviewing, you can say like, oh, I was actually, someone asked you a question and maybe you have relevant experience from something not listed. You can talk about it then if you want to, but you are not required to have like it's not like a full medical history of everything you've absolutely, ever happened. Like
For sure,
keep
yeah.
the highlights in there. And as you said, it might seem weird to someone if like if you just like remove something from 3 years ago or you show a big gap. So you might want to show some of the recent things and how long you were at those places. But everything before that, like pick and choose the highlights of what is impressive and or what is relevant to the job that you're applying for today. Like maybe you did something 19 years ago that has absolutely nothing with what you're doing today or what you want to apply to, just take it out. Or if you did do something 19 years ago that's like freaking awesome and you want to include it, then like put a little sentence about it, but you don't have to have the full history.
What if you do that and you mention that you worked at XYZ company and the interviewer says, oh, when was that?
It's tricky.
They can ask that? They can ask that.
So that's a really good question. So when I talked about it's illegal for employees to ask your age, some people might be dumb and just say like, how old are you? Like, don't answer that question. But people do kind of like trickily, is that a word? Try to figure out your age by asking questions like that. So if they say, how long ago was that? You can say, is that important? Does that matter? And sometimes maybe it does. Maybe you're talking about like a technology you used to use or it's like a competitive company. So there might be times where you kind of need to say, but I don't know. It's tricky because you really don't have to answer that question specifically. And you shouldn't. You should say, is there a reason you need to know exactly when it was? Like, I don't think that that's important. And it feels weird because it almost feels like you're sounding fishy, trying to hide things. But I would say just like as gracefully as you can, try to kind of, work around it and just talk about your experience, talk about what you did, talk about the value you added, unless for any reason it's like so important to talk about that. And then sometimes people are going to just know, like we have a client at Beach Commute who did some things like in a certain industry where if she talked about what she did, like you would know by what she was talking about when she was working on it, by the date of something, right? So there's going to be times where you just can't, it's like you can't exactly hide it. But by that point, you want to hope that someone just like, if you're talking to them at that point and they see that, by then they should know that you're a good person, that you're valuable, that you're qualified. You should be past just like the initial stages of getting rejected and in that conversation of just, being a good person.
Okay.
And a good candidate. But yeah, it's a really good question and it's a really gray area and kind of tricky. And it might feel the same way we're like, hide your age. It might feel like, if you're listening, I would imagine this feels like you're like, Jeff and Marissa are telling me to be really sketchy, It does. I
don't want that to come across too much, it's just, but we got to be realistic about what's out there.
Yes. And I will say like, it is real. And I would say, like blame the companies and the people that are being sketchy. Like we're trying to help you get around those sketchy people. So the reason we're telling you this is like nobody should be asking you these questions. If you had a great company and great employer, you're not going to need any of this because they're going to be good people who don't have these biases. But the reality of this world is that there are, and people may try to skirt around these issues, and it's up to you to skirt back, like play that back. And if you really feel like someone is pushing you for your age or pushing you for this information, it's probably not a company you want to work for anyway, is what I would say.
So that brings us now to the third technique on the list. Okay,
yep. So this is very similar to number 2. So we were talking specifically about sort of like hiding your age and your dates of past experience on LinkedIn. So the third thing you want to do is the same on your resume. So as Jeff so wonderfully pointed out earlier, it's like you can just kind of remove things. You don't, if you're 20 years into your career, your resume might be like 30 pages if you have everything you've ever absolutely done. So really think about and be very cognizant of like, what are the most important things I've done? What do I really want to highlight? What is really relevant to the job or the companies that I'm applying to now? So 1, you can take some of those dates out. Your resume will look like a red flag if you take every single date out, right? So as Jeff said, like a lot of people do want to know, what have you been up to recently? How long have you been at some companies recently? Are you moving around every 2 months or do you have some longevity? think we talked about that in another episode, but regardless, you do want to have the dates for the past couple of jobs that you've had. So don't listen to this and say like, I'm taking out everything, right? So do keep a couple of the dates, but beyond that, you can do the same sort of technique that I talked about on LinkedIn. And in the bottom, instead of having 7 different companies that you worked at 10 plus years ago, you can have something that just says like additional career highlights or key career highlights or things like that. And just sort of put some bullets of the things that you're proud of at certain companies. And when you're in an interview, somewhat, you can dig a little deeper or you can talk about it. When you submit that application, it doesn't eliminate you before you even get to the interview because it doesn't show the dates of some of those jobs that you had so long ago.
How important is this resume at this point? Maybe a better question. How often are people actually reading these versus scanning them through applicant tracking systems?
It depends on the size of the company. So that ATS, what you're talking about was the application tracking software. If you're applying to the Googles, the Facebooks, Amazon, giant companies, when you submit your resume, it is literally going through it scans it, it looks for keywords. Like you will get rejected before anything ever happens if anything is off. Most of the companies that we promote and highlight and talk about and share in our digital Nomad Jobs daily emails and membership aren't those big giant companies. They're a little more forward thinking. They are forward thinking because they let people travel. They're open to digital nomads. But the smaller the company, the less likely it is to have that. And resumes are interesting because people spend so much time and put a lot of weight on them. But people say that sometimes a lot of HR or hiring managers look at, it's something between 6 and 7.2 seconds or something when they're first looking at a resume. Like it is a quick scan. So
sounds about right.
Yeah. So again, if they're doing a quick scan and maybe they have an implicit bias about age and they're like, oh, that job is a 92. Nope. I'm not saying that someone does that, but it might be a really quick scan and immediate no, whether it's an ATS, an applicant tracking software, or whether it's just somebody reading it. So basically, again, think about the resume as your dating app profile. That's just a real quick yes, no, yes, no, yes, no to even get to that next step. So the best that you can do to just make that resume not get you rejected. I always say a resume it's not normally something that's going to get you a job, but it can be something that rejects you before you even get a chance to show what you're worth.
It's just basically table stakes. It just basically gets you a seat at the table, and that's it. And all you can do is screw it up. So don't screw it up.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like your ticket even into the room versus getting rejected with like a fake ticket. It's like you are not allowed in. So yeah, it's just a way you want to make sure that it doesn't eliminate you before you even have a chance to talk to someone.
And you thought of a bonus or a number 4 on the fly.
Yes.
Let's go to that.
Yeah. So let me talk about the number 4. So the first 3 are really about hiding your age. And again, don't judge us we're not being sketchy. We're just trying to help you with implicit biases and being real here. But the 4th one is another tip just to say, let's say it is like somehow it's still just tricky to hide your age. There's going to be ways or kind of clues that you've done something from a long time ago or whatever that might be. Let's just say someone can still tell. What we really highlight, we've done in some of our programs we've helped speech commuters with, is to talk to real people at these companies. I cannot stress this enough. It is the most important way to get a job or remote job for anything you're doing. There's something like 80% of jobs are not always posted, or if they are, the people who get interviews are the people who know someone at that company or have a weak tie. So I always, always, always recommend reaching out. Like, let's say you find a company you love, you've submitted your resume, find people on LinkedIn at that company, find people, ask a friend of a friend, however it is, to talk to real people. Because if you are like, and again, I think about this as some of the beach commuters in our programs who I would hire in a second who do have a lot of experience or are older. Once I talk to them, and I hope that I would not have an age bias, but either way, when I know these people and I talk to them and I hear their experience and I know their personalities and who they are and what they're like, I want to hire them. Like that's how I am. And that's how most people are. So if you can get past the resume and past the LinkedIn and past all the barriers, again, past the dating app and pretend like you met someone at a party instead, or you met someone at a coffee or with a friend of a friend, and then they're like, oh, I like this personality. I didn't know I was going to be attracted to them, right? So that's the same sort of thing you want here. And there's different ways. We've done some master classes. We'll share those in the sometime in the future. But there's kind of like an art and a science to get those conversations, but just to know as a way, like if you can have a conversation with a real person at the company, it's a way that your age matters less, because let's say Jeff is in his 60s and I'm talking to him and I have an opening and I'm like, oh, someone in their 60s could never do this job, right? Let's just pretend I have a bias. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just having a conversation with Jeff. Maybe someone introduces or he reaches out. I'm like, I'll have a conversation. And then I hear, oh my gosh, like you know how to do this. You're so great at that. Like Jeff's so fun. Jeff is great. Like I want to hire Jeff. Mm-hmm. So that's really what you want to do, is get around all the paperwork, get around all the LinkedIn, get around all the face lists, personality lists, information there, and just make real human connections so that they know your worth and your value and who you are and what you can do. And that's really the best of the best way to get around the age problem, any problem, and get a remote job or otherwise.
Did you have a statistic on that? The percentage of hires that come through that type of interaction or referrals?
80% is
80%. Well, there you go.
The statistic that's out there. Yeah.
That's what you need to be doing anyways.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what I love, if I think about even our Digital Nomad Jobs Daily membership, it's always a mouthful to say that, but we send out postings that do
even
exist.
the acronym's not much easier
I
to
know.
say.
DNJD. We'll talk about that. And if you want to join, we'll talk about that. You can go to beachcommute.com/nomadjobs. So we send out daily emails from companies that are actually hiring remote employees that have great job listings, whether it's entry level, intermediate, or more advanced for the 5, 10, 20, 50, 15 years plus experience. And with that, I always say, like, if you see the perfect company and the perfect listing, yes, apply to it, but then also go find people who work at that company. Go on LinkedIn, research it, reach out to people. So what I love from our beach commuters who are part of the membership is they always say, to me, it's like the first starting point of you, like, I think what people love about it is you'll find companies on there. Like we find companies that you will probably never find on your own. Like you've never maybe heard of, but they're awesome companies and they have really great cultures and they're really legitimate companies and they really do let you travel. So with that, even though, 80% of jobs are often gotten through personal connections. So I think about this membership. One, you might just see the perfect remote job and apply and get it. Like that is wonderful. But the workaround is you might just see the company that you love that we send through, which is what a lot of people say. They're just like, I never knew this company existed and I love it. And then take that and run and reach out to people. And they might be hiring for another role 3 months from now that is going to be perfect for you. And if you reach out to them now, once we share that company and you find someone there and you make a connection, then when they're hiring for that role, they might not even post it. They might be like, I talked to this person 3 months ago. They were perfect. We don't even have to post this role. Like I know who to hire. So that's how that happens sometimes. And I think our membership is a great way to find companies and then go a level deeper and find, real connections at those places. And again, people often ask me, even if you submit that application right then and there, you might see the perfect role. I still recommend reaching out to people on top of that and not just relying, like, yes, submit the application. It's important because you might get disqualified if you don't do it. Some people just have processes that, companies go through, but then you really want to find a real person to talk to on top of that as well.
Okay, cool. So with that, let's get into a few of the things to watch out for. Some of the sneaky ways. I guess we were being sneaky. So let's counter some of the sneaky ways that employers might ask for your age.
Yeah. So I think the question that you asked is they're not so direct, right? So as Jeff said, like, oh, well, when did you work on that? Or how long did you work there? Like if it seems like
because they can't ask you. So they'll reverse engineer it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, what year, how long ago did you go to the college? Like, oh, I knew someone there. What, when were you there? Things like that. So you really don't have to answer it. It's going to sound, some people also might ask innocently. Like I know for me, there's times where I really genuinely probably would be like, oh my gosh, I have a friend who went there. What year were you there? I might accidentally ask something like that with good intentions. So it's not always that they're like out to get you, but sometimes if you feel like a company or an interviewer is just kind of in a workaround way trying to say like, oh, when were you here? How many years were you there for? Oh, and then you did what? How long did you work there for? Or what year, what songs were out when you were in college? I don't know. There's all these tricky ways, but you really don't have to answer. And again, it might be that someone just asks a question innocently, but if you feel like someone's really fishing and trying to calculate these things, which does happen from time to time, you don't have to answer or mark that as a red flag for that company.
Anything else that the audience needs to be aware of?
No, I think I would just say, if you're listening to this, my key takeaway is no matter how old you are, whether you are 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond, like there is a way to get a remote job. And it might take more personal connections. It might take networking. So I think the fact is sometimes, like, I wish I could just say, there's no age bias. Like, what are you guys talking about, right? That's like what my heart wants to say. But I think to know, yes, sometimes people do have these biases, but there are workarounds and there are ways to get past it. So don't give up. Don't say, oh, well, people are age biased. I'm this old, so I'm not going to get a job. I'm not going to get a remote job. I can't become a digital nomad. Those are all not excuses, because it might be harder. It might take workarounds. It might take, I say, purposefully being sneaky, but in the right way to get your foot in the door. But don't give up. And I think it just takes a lot of character to say, I want something. I want to travel the world. I want a remote job. I want to keep progressing in my career while I travel. And I'm not going to give up. I'm going to find ways. I'm going to be a great person and network my ass off if I need to. And I know people hate that word, but we talk a lot. It does take, reaching out to companies, finding people on LinkedIn, making those, asking for what I call informational interviews, which is saying, hey, I'd love to learn about how you got where you are. Can we do a Zoom call, right? It doesn't always mean networking in person anymore. But I would say, if you're listening, like you can get a remote job. We have traveled with people of so many ages who have remote jobs, from right out of college or high school to 40s, 50s, 60s, who are living this lifestyle and still working. So don't give up. You can do it. Is possible. And I hope this episode maybe opens your eyes, but really more so that it gives you some tactical tips to sort of reduce your chances of having people have biases against you before they even meet you. And just know that once you talk to someone, they'll be able to, hear your value, understand what you're capable of. And if you're interested in finding companies that do hire fully remote employees that give you the freedom to travel, do check out beachcommute.com/nomad jobs. And that is our Digital Nomad Jobs daily membership, where every Monday through Friday, we send out 2 really awesome remote companies that our team has researched and vetted and made sure they really do hire remote employees. They do usually are like amazing cultures that are going to be less likely to judge you by your age, like some of these other places. We can't guarantee, we don't personally work there, but we do our best to find just awesome places to work that seem like they have great cultures, have great reviews. And again, if you find these companies that you love, maybe it's the perfect role, but maybe you just spend time reaching out to people at a couple, maybe you get one week and 2 weeks later you see the perfect company that you just love and you love their mission, and spend that time reaching out to people. So check out Digital Nomad or beachcommute.com/nomad jobs for a Digital Nomad Jobs daily membership. It's a mouthful.
And if you've got a better acronym for us, send it in.
DNJJ.
We're going to keep the name. Yeah, we're going to keep the name. But if you want a shortcut, you got a nickname, throw it out.
We
there
need
for
a
us.
nickname. Give us a nickname if you got an idea.
A nickname's the name is staying, but
DNJD.
just give us. Yeah, right. Yeah. Give us a nickname.
We need a more fun name. We love it.
We'll run a poll.
Yeah, put that poll there if you have any ideas. But other than that, if you have any questions, email us at hello@beachcommute.com. Any other last words, Jeff, before we hop off today?
No, if you got any questions, as always, you can write us in at hello@beachcommute.com. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, you can always add comments or questions directly in the app, and those get published live for other people to see. And generally, we either take those into consideration as podcast requests, or we will incorporate them into podcasts, like spelling the names of cities. We tend to do that a lot now, too. So we do read anything and everything that you send in through all channels, so we do appreciate that.
I love, someone wrote in, this is my favorite, and they're like, Marissa speaks really fast when she's spelling. I feel like we were spelling the names of cities and countries.
Yeah.
I was loving
Jeff
it. I was like,
slow like I do, and Marissa speaks fast.
I didn't know. So these things help
didn't know
us.
either.
Next time I spell things, I'm gonna spell it nice and slow. So we love the feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, and we're here to help you. And I guess we'll see you next week.